All right, so good evening. This is our Vision Purpose Excellence, VPE for short. And we're doing this on Mondays at 6 p.m., 7, 8, 9, 9 p.m. Eastern. And we do this every week after the Optavia training with Dr. A, and then the secondary training. So that's from 5 to 6, and this is from 6 to 6:30 or so. And we've been doing a series called Vision, Purpose, and Excellence. And it's really been about um, a lot of the heart work and a lot of the work where we are figuring out how to get over the hump of what it takes to connect the person that needs help and the ability to help them, or the tool to help them and the person that needs it, and how to connect those two dots. And so it's my pleasure to be with you tonight. Tonight, the topic is the intentional heart. The intentional heart guides the crossing. I've got a little graphic here that that came up with here. I think it's the reality of where as we come alongside someone, sometimes things can get a little scary, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. But the intentional heart guides the crossing, and so as we're getting started here, the first week, where, by the way, just so you all know, the first week that we did training, it's probably 6-7 weeks ago, and I looked at that video, and you guys were different. You guys have all changed. I see you guys showing up more authentically you than you were when we first started. I see people leaning in and not checking out. I see people that are connecting with kindness, and you guys have stories to talk about those kinds of things. And we've talked about many of those last week. That was really exciting. And so this week we're talking, and I got a kind of an example that I want to share with you, and then we're going to have a little discussion. And but before we get into that, we do have some new people that have joined our team. And I see Spencer, that he's joined, and he's a brand new coach. So could you just come off of mute for a second? Tell us where you're from, who's your coach, and maybe just a little healthy highlight from your journey so far.
I'm Spencer Goff from San Diego, California, and Alex McMillan is my coach. I've been on for 3 weeks now, and I'm down 24 pounds.
And so thank you. Welcome to the team. What was the reason why you decided to be part of the coaching process and helping others? What was something that stuck out to you?
Coaching process. I am a physical therapist, and I enjoy helping people. And going along this journey, I see how I could help so many more people than just the few people that I actually treat in my day job. So I see it as an avenue to help a much larger group of people.
Fantastic, Spencer. Well, I'm glad that you're here. We talked earlier today, and it was my pleasure to meet you. And one of the things when we think about what we're doing here is we have a bit of an orchestra, and so everybody has their own instrument. And so as we play together, and Tim and I, we talk about harmonizing. And if you can harmonize, I recommend it, because it's magical. And so we are learning to harmonize with one another, and I think we're learning that well. So thank you, and welcome to our team huddle up tonight. So here's an idea for you. I want you to think about this. You kind of have some ideas where, imagine in your mind you have a kid, his parents signs him up for soccer. All right. And you go down to the store and you buy the cleats and you buy the little shin guards and the special socks that are like 5 feet long for some reason. And then you have these special jerseys and they get their soccer ball and it's all great. And when they come to the practice and they're pretty confident while they're getting their gear on, but they get to the field and somehow fear kicks in and they don't want to go on the field, right? You guys think about those kind of situations? I can think of that with my kids were at soccer and they were a little bit tentative to go on the field. And what happened is the coach walks over and the coach goes, "Man, I sure like your pads. Are those new?" And my son's like, "Yeah, they're new." He said, "Well, hey, why don't you grab my hand? Let's walk out there together." And immediately he grabs his hand and they walk out together. And there was something about going out on crossing onto that field by himself that it was scary. But when the coach was there and connected with kindness, reached his hand out and offered to cross out onto that field, somehow it made it possible. And so I'm thinking about some of the things that we're doing as coaches. We've learned to connect with kindness. We've learned how to hear someone's story and even understand our story deeper. And so now it gets to a point where we have to be bold enough to say, see people that want to play soccer, but they're a little scared, or they want to get healthy, but what if this is another one of those things? What if I fail again? What if it costs too much? What if I can't do it? What if? And quite honestly, um, they might not be able to do it by themselves, but they don't have to. And so what if we were able to go, I understand where you're at. I felt that way too. But you know what? I bet you we can do this together. And we have the boldness of actually making an offer to walk with them on the field or to walk with them across whatever that crossing is. And here's another thing too, as we think about it. There's not just one crossing. There's many crossings. And sometimes what'll happen is we wait to make an offer, we wait to reach our hand out until it's the big crossing. And sometimes it's too big. And so I'm curious, as you guys are thinking about that in your minds, what are the baby crossings that we can do while we're connecting with kindness, while we're asking questions? Here's one simple way. Someone, maybe you're talking to them in a little chat and they talk about all the medications they're on. And so you can say something like this. Yeah, I just had a vision for a minute of you looking up at your dresser or your medicine cabinet and you realize there's just not any bottles in there anymore. Can you see it? And that's like you casting a little vision and reaching your hand out and kind of helping them across that little crossing to be able to see the vision of what if they grabbed your hand and crossed. What if they got out this book after they said yes and they opened up this book and they wrote their name in it. That's a crossing for some people, right? All these different areas of crossing, asking someone a question like this: what's been your nemesis? What's been the thing that just constantly eats at you year after year and you just don't know if you're ever going to be able to overcome that? A lot of people will say it's something physical. It's their weight. And these are little ways that we can kind of cast a vision, ask a question, but then we bring them down to, I've been there before. Grab my hand. So let that sink in for a little bit, and then I'd love for one of you or many of you to come off of mute. What's going through your mind as we talk about this concept of how the intentional heart guides the crossing? Yeah, Jose. Oh yeah, unmute yourself. There you go.
Okay. Okay. Hello, everybody. Welcome, Spencer. One of the things, Craig, that between you, Martin, and Linan and Tim have been helping me do is y'all been waiting for me to get to the point where I can move on with myself. Tim has given me the kind of like backdrop on what a broken heart is the actual injury. And a lot has taken place in my life, and my heart is full every time I go to convention. This is my second convention with Optavia, and I'm just growing, and I'm not even doing anything, but I'm growing as a person with to Save a Life program, and and what you Tim and you Craig and Tim are doing, and my heart is just so tender that I needed to get some healing done. I needed that coach. As old as I am, I needed to grab him by the hand and say, "Come on out here to the field, Jose. We're gonna take care of you." And I've been hurting. I've been hurting for a long time. But I'm on the comeback, but humbled. I can't take no pride on any of this. I can't take no credit for any of this. I'm just humbled by the love since the convention, since that little round gathering that we had, and that we.
I think I might have lost you there. Yeah, something happened. Well, and I don't know. We're going to talk behind his back for a second, but have you noticed Jose's different? Like just in these last 3 weeks, for those of you that know him, he's different. And he says he's not doing anything, but one thing he is doing is he's showing up and he's putting his heart out there. And then the other thing he's doing is when Tim reached back and said, "Hey, grab my hand," he grabbed it. And he's not on the field. And I know Lenan, you know Jose, and it's different. He's different. So here, thank you, Jose, and I'm sure he'll be back on here in a second. So think of a time, maybe I want to think of a time in your life when someone reached out their hand in some way and guided you across something that you weren't sure you could make it, or you were too scared. Anybody else want to share a time like that where someone's guided you across a crossing?
Hello.
Hi, Lynn Ann.
Hi there. A couple of people know that I taught Spanish for many decades, but student teaching, was so like that. I mean, you're still, now that the age I'm at now, that I'm not going to tell anybody. You're a kid still. You're in your early 20s and you're in the classroom, and there's kids in there that some of them you're only maybe 5 or 6 years older than. But having a student teacher, I mean, you're a teacher that you're trying to emulate. You end up taking over their full-time job, right? I don't know, is there any teachers out there or anybody that went through something similar? And I mean, you have to get out in front of the kids and take a risk. And if you have a good teacher that you're emulating, the master teacher, they encourage you, they love you, they believe in you, they remind you of the education that you've had. I mean, experience, you don't have it yet. You really don't have it yet. But they're like, look, you can do this. You know more than they do. And you can guide them, right? So, get out there. You're going to do like a 15-minute thing on, subject pronouns or whatever. And then they give you feedback, but just putting you out in front with their belief behind you, encouraging you and pushing you in a gentle way to become more. It's amazing. That's all I have. And welcome, Spencer.
Great job, Lynn Ann. Yeah, Daniela.
Hey, I don't know if my connection is great. Can you hear me?
Loud. Yes, you're coming in
Oh,
great.
perfect. So I just wanted to spin off of what Lenan's sharing and the topic of the intentional heart. I think one thing that has really struck me is the intentional heart doesn't come in with an expectation, right? The intentional heart doesn't come in with, I'll stay as long as you're doing X or as long as this is happening. The intentional heart is there for the journey, and the hand is out and the hand is patient, and it isn't about a place or time or rank or an agenda. It's a friendship and a connection and a love of one another that is there for the long haul. And I look at that, and it colors when I look at things like it's 5 years. It's 5 years for a client to really cross through their journey, right? That's what statistics show, is in 5 years, there's 97% likelihood, if they've been able to stay course for 5 years, that they probably will for the rest of their life. And when I hear that, that speaks loudly to me about what that journey is. It's not a journey of, did you make it? Or, I'm here as long as you're on program. It's a journey of my hands out, and when I think of one another here as coaches, as co-coaches, I think to myself that, we're here together for the long haul, and we're here hopefully not contingent upon, you did this or you did that, but rather we're just in life's journey together. And that, to me, that's the intentional heart.
Mm-hmm.
That's the heart that's ready to help people cross, is when there are, as Tim would say, no rules, no time limits, no agenda.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's all I wanted to share.
Tim was bragging on you as we were talking about this, and he talked about a situation where a lady was talking about her running in circles, and you switched it to straight lines. Does that ring a bell?
Oh,
can you share that with us?
Yes, it does. I was talking to a potential coach, and she was saying that she was just feeling like she was sort of stuck in this circle that was going around and around, both in her health journey and just in trying to get this whole idea of reaching out to other people, going. And as I listened to her, it struck me that, we could use her thought process of going around in a circle and create forward momentum. And so I spoke with her, and this came from listening to her, right, and what she was feeling and thinking. And I just heard that reoccurring theme of circle. And I kept thinking, okay, she is so connected to that circle, but how do I bridge that circle to something that's forward? Because a circle is caught, right? You're stuck. And so I said to her, what if we turn these many circles that you're talking about into a spiral, and we worked our way forward until we straightened it out? And it rang a bell with her, and it helped her a ton, and we've been moving forward ever since. We're still working through the spiral, but the spirals are getting farther apart, and we talk about that the loops are getting farther apart, and in between the loops there's some flattening starting to happen. And so it's been exciting.
Well, there's two things there, Daniela, and I hope you guys heard it. There was listening. She was listening with an intentional heart, and she said it took her a few times. It wasn't one conversation, but Daniela was listening, and she saw a pattern of this person. Think of it, a circle to a spiral. It's a small shift. She didn't go from a circle to a line. Went from a circle to a spiral, which is still going in circles, but it's slightly different each time. Just slightly different. And you're getting farther and farther away, right? And so that's like exactly what I'm talking about. And I loved how you said it. It's not something I did. It's something I will always do. And for me, just so you guys know, May was 9 years of my journey. So I'm almost twice the 5 years, right? And I'm today 6 pounds. I stay within a 10-pound window of my goal weight, and that's my freedom zone, and still there. Plan to be there again next month, but I had to work for it, and worked and worked and worked, and kept getting my spiral out a little bit. My circle got a little bigger, a little bit straighter. Kim, by the way, before you go, Kim, if you guys think of something, you can click on where it says participants, and then you can click on raise hand, and then it'll pop up digitally. Of course, you can always do this. This is a non-digital hand. We all have them. So, yeah, Kim, go ahead.
Yeah, I think my thoughts have connected to what Lynn shared and Daniela as well. I was a teacher as well, and so it did resonate with me when Lynn was talking about that student teaching experience. And what occurred to me is that when I went in as a student teacher, I thought, I have the most recent education, and I have a whole lot to offer, not only my students, but probably all the other teachers in the building that have lost their motivation and everything. And it was very quickly that I realized that I had a lot to learn. And I think just as with my coaching experience, first I thought I need to have all the answers. I got to read this book. I got to have it memorized. I need to be able to point my clients exactly where they need to go. And there's certainly value in knowing all that. But I found so much more tremendous value in listening and really listening for what's not being said. I think about, even the best athletes in the world need coaches, right? They have coaches, they need coaches. And so what do those coaches do? Because honestly, if you look at a lot of the coaches, I'm not sure they're any better than those star athletes, right? But they're able to see what's missing, to see what's behind the long pauses. It's when somebody says things are going good, and you say, "Wow, you paused on that good. Tell me about that." There's something behind that, and really being able to, with intention, find, because your example too, Craig, about the little kid going out onto the soccer field. I have 2 boys. They both have played soccer. And I can tell you what my older son needs from me with regards to soccer is something very different than what my younger son needs with regards to soccer. I need to slow my older son down a little bit, have him calm down a little bit, and I had to almost drag my younger one out there, and so every person we work with has different needs, has different fears, has different desires. And so I've just found the better I can get at listening. And the cool thing is when we're present and we're zoned into that, it's actually a lot more fun, and it's a lot easier because we don't have to know all the answers. We just need to know the questions.
Mm-hmm. So good. Thank you, Kim. Love it. Love it. And so what we're talking about, for those of you that tuned in, is we're talking about how if you've had somebody in your life help you across a concept, or maybe even just accomplish something by reaching their hand out and helping you across that crossing. Who wants to go next? This might be in a number of areas. Think about something you've maybe done, like Kim just said, about your children, or maybe your spouse. You had something, maybe a fear or an uncertainty in some area of your life, and your spouse said, "Well, let's do it together." Maybe traveling on an airplane, or you never know, but it could be coworkers or friends or your spouse or maybe your children. Maybe it's a time when you've had a coach in your life and you had an awesome experience with a coach helping you cross over into something that you were afraid of?
Well, Craig, I can jump in,
Hmm.
and maybe it'll help trigger somebody else. I don't know, but you know, I think we've all bumped into, just in our coaching, places where we've maybe felt stuck, or we felt like we're just not getting something.
Hmm.
There's something that other people seem to get that I don't get. At least I know that seemed to happen to me a few different times, and I think, there was a very pivotal moment for me, in a couple different places actually, where another person reached out their hand and said, "Hey, is there something I can do to help you?" And, I'll just, I don't know where Tim came from, but somehow he saw that and he reached out his hand and he did that for me.
Hmm.
And it was very intentional in hindsight, seeing that. And I think that when that happens, everything can change in almost in a moment, right? Just knowing that someone cared enough to notice that maybe something was a little off with you or a little different with you, especially when it's somebody who doesn't even really, at that time, Tim and I didn't know each other well at all. But he still showed up and said, "Hey, what's going on, and how can I help you?" And
Hmm.
I just think if we can say that more often to just people in general, "Hey, what's up? And how can I help you?" rather than, "Hi, how are you?" And they
Hmm.
say, "Fine." And you go, "Okay," and you move on. So that's my
Thank
thought
you,
on that.
Daniela. Yeah, Casina.
I had a few years back, I had a boss and a mentor that I was the office manager and I had been promoted from administrative assistant, and she came to me and she said, I really think we had a need for an HR and payroll person, and she came to me, and I thought, I don't know how to do any of that, and I didn't have a degree. I had left school after some struggles, and so I hadn't finished my degree, and I felt like that was something that, I mean, I held a lot of shame for not having finished school, and that I let that hold me back, and had a lot of fear surrounding that because I thought, well, nobody's going to give me a chance. And she came to me and she gave me a chance, knowing full well that I didn't have the educational background or the paperwork to back that up, but that gave me the confidence that within a couple years of her like instilling in me this confidence and teaching me and believing in me, that I did go and finish my degree. And that was such a huge thing. And now I think about back, and I think after 10 years of feeling shameful for not having finished, now it's like I forget that I felt that way.
Mm.
Because now it's just like, no, I have my degree and it's all good now. So
It's so great. It's interesting as we're going through our lives that we sort of have a window of what we're working on right now. And it's sometimes hard for us to go back and realize the old windows and of our life where we were working through something, and so it's hard to sometimes put yourself and think about what were the times when someone helped me. I heard a story one time where a father took his son out on like a backpacking trip, and they built a fire and they did some different things, and then there was a certain point in the trip where there was kind of something kind of scary. I think they were going across a waterfall or kind of some kind of thing, and he was like, his dad was on the other side, and the son said, "I'm not sure I can make it." And he looked at his son and he goes, "Son, you're a dangerous man, and I'm certain you can get across this. And like the illumination of the son having the father speak about him like that is just like this thing that just wells up in you as a little boy. Like, my dad thinks I'm a dangerous boy and I can get across this, you know. And it's just those different ways that our words can speak life into somebody, and we can see something when we're paying attention and we're being intentional, and we can notice somebody. We can notice. There was a lady. Here's a story. There was a lady that was at a convention, and convention was a big room. I mean, thousands and thousands and thousands of people were in the room, and this was probably on the final day when Jamil was talking, and I was sitting in the very back, and there was a woman standing behind all the chairs, and she looked lost. She looked kind of, I don't know, I just had a discernment about her that she was I don't know, just not doing very good. And I rolled over to her and I said, are you doing okay? And she looked at me, and I'm trying to bring up the message, because I didn't know who she was. She messaged me later. I can't remember the coach's name. Donnie. And so one of the things that happened here is I just talked to her. I said hello to her, and then and she said, "Can I get a photo with you?" And then later on, Donnie, who is this coach's coach, Donnie and I are friends. Donnie said, "I have several of the people on my team that have heard you speak and are fans of you." And there was a few of them that were bummed that they didn't get some time with you. And there was one of them that really wanted to get a photo. And you rolled over to her and said, "Are you okay?" and noticed her. And she said, "Oh my goodness." And she said, "My favorite coach actually came up to me, introduced himself, and asked me if I was okay when I was standing in the back looking for where you guys were seated." And so it's just, I had no idea any of that was going on, but it was one of those things where you notice somebody and then you go over and just make a connection with them, and somehow it lights up their heart, you know. And these are the things I'm talking about what we're a part of, and what is our harmony in this band. Kim, you had your hand up.
Yeah, I had the privilege of going to an awesome conference for my church this last Friday. And it's amazing to me, you know, whenever I feel like God reveals the same concepts in all areas of my life. And it was very much connected. The theme of the conference was, it was about helping youth with their faith. But the name of it was Get Personal. And I think obviously that's what we do. They encourage it when youth is involved, but it's like, I'm just thinking this is human being stuff, because I think, you know, a lot of us, our pain and stuff comes from our childhood and that kind of thing. But the questions they asked, they said there are 5 questions. You know, do you know my name? That was the first one. How important it is to just be recognized for who you are. Do you know where I live? And that could be a physical address, but it also is, where do I live emotionally, mentally, perspective? Do you know what matters to me? And these are kind of getting progressively deeper. Then do you know what I've done? And I think when we're talking with our existing clients, how many times do our clients, are they afraid to share things with us because you have no idea what I did this last week? I'd rather just keep it to myself, or maybe I won't even call this week because I don't think you don't want to know what I've done. It's been, the things that we might be embarrassed about or shameful of. And I appreciated what Cassina shared, just that shame that we carry, that often is the barrier when we're trying to make that intentional crossing. The shame is what gets in the way the most. And then the last one is, do you know what I can do? And I think when we're leading with intention, when I think back to times in my life, transformational times, I'm not sure. I can't think of very many times where I've transformed just by myself. In fact, I can't think of one, so I'd really have to think to try to find one. Almost always somebody else was there, seeing something that I couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Even I can think back into when I was in middle school and high school, and a total introvert, and there was this one kid in our youth group that would find me. If I was sitting in my car, he'd find me there and he'd say, come on, we want you, come to our group, we need you, you have to do this or you have to do that. I needed somebody to notice me, and not only did he notice me, but he had to work hard to notice me because I was often not even on site. And that changed my whole involvement in our church group, to make a difference in my life with Optavia. I needed somebody else to help me get over the hurdles that I couldn't get over myself. And so to me, it starts with noticing. But I think about those 5 questions really struck me as like, that's what we get to do all the time. And I think all of those are really important things. What does matter to the person that we're talking with? When we can connect with that, we can find the pathway over that shame, or around it, or under it, or through it. And there's a quote that I remember very specifically. It was, seen people see people. And I think that's the bridge like that we've all been on, right? We feel like we've finally been seen, we've been noticed, we've been filled. Now we can go out and see other people. I just thought it was such a cool quote, and really a calling or a mission to be on.
Thank you, Kim. Wow, I'm just gonna let that one soak in for a second. Yeah, Sharon, go ahead.
Yeah, I appreciate what you had to say, Kim. I'm a biblical counselor, and it's amazing how many of the principles that we use in counseling apply to helping people with weight and their health. And the thing I like about your story, Craig, is that the coach noticed the fear in that little boy. And so I think as coaches, as health coaches, we need to kind of be heads up to recognize when people are fearful, and then identify, if we can, where their fear is coming from. In counseling, we call it watching for halo data, and that is just little signs that they give. Body language, whatever. But being good listeners, I think, is really key in being able to help others make that crossing, And then the last thing is to give hope. I think that's kind of the goal of every counseling session for me, is to give them hope, no matter where they are. Give them some hope, so that it's been said when we train people to be counselors that your first goal of your first session is to have a second session. So the best way to do that is to give them hope. Those are just some of my thoughts as we're talking tonight. Just that we have a lot of hope to offer. If people are having health problems, if they're simply looking for weight problems, it won't be long until they're going to recognize a lot more advantage with Optavia than just merely weight loss.
Yeah.
Welcome, Spencer.
Thanks, Sharon. Yeah, what I've heard someone say, the least you'll lose is the weight, right? If you come to Optavia, the least you'll get from all of this is losing some weight. It's not the most. And I also think about when we connect with kindness and when we listen for vacancies, we're just listening. You'll hear them. If your desire is to hear where somebody has a vacancy in their life, Jesus, when he was teaching, he didn't address the deeper meaning to begin with. When he was preaching to there was a couple, 2 or 3 times where he taught to crowds of 3,000 to 5,000, and when he started talking, they were hungry, so he fed them first. He met the felt need. I'm hungry. And then when they were no longer hungry, there was vacancies that showed up. And then he met the found need. He gave them hope and reached out his hand for the crossing, right? And so we begin with the physical felt needs, and they can be a number of things. They can be weight, energy, disease, medication, some type of something. And as we start to build a connection and we establish trust with that person, then they are open to us speaking into other areas as we are intentional, not only our in heart being intentional, but being intentional with their heart as we cross that crossing. And so what I want to think about today as we're closing is now that you're aware about what a crossing could look like, I'm wondering how many crossings you can take in the next 7 days. So look for opportunities where you see that shaking soccer boy or girl ready to go out but is too scared to go out, and you can come over and you notice them, you connect with kindness, but then you make an offer and you put your hand out and you say, let's go together. It'll be better together, right? So think about helping to bridge a crossing for maybe an opportunity with one. If you have children, with your child, how can you bridge a crossing with them? Maybe it's something you do with your spouse, or you encourage them in an area that they might be discouraged. Maybe it's a coworker, right? Or it could be a friend. But think of people. What we want to do this week is, as we're connecting with kindness and we're noticing people and we're sharing our stories, look for ways that we can bridge the crossing in just small little ways with people. Let's get good at noticing that person ready to play soccer but too scared to get on the field. And then let's go over and reach out and make an offering. That offering might be to have a deeper conversation. It might be for them to actually start a program, to order their kit. It might be to join the Wednesday night Habits of Health. It could be inviting them to a healthy social. By the way, if you're in the Vancouver, Portland area, our next healthy social is going to be on September 4th at Debbie's house. So if you want to come, that's our next healthy social, 4 to 6. And of course, I know that you guys over in the Spokane area just had a big party, so that was fun there as well. But think about that for our time this week, because we have the ability to help people, and we're seeing people everywhere that need help. And so there comes a point where our boldness has to be intentional about helping them cross over, and so they can start moving towards that. All right, you guys. By the way, many of you I connected with this last week. We spent about 20 minutes, and I loved the time. I know Sharon, Cassina, Bessie, Jose, Diane, Patty, Murray, and Darla. Those are all the people that I've connected with so far. And so the rest of you, I'd love to spend a quick little 20 minutes with you one-on-one. And we'll figure out, we'll let the conversation guide us as to what is what's the small little next little thing that we need to do to move forward. All right, you guys, it is my privilege to grow alongside of you. And so thanks for showing up with your heart in hand and sharing it with us. All right, you guys, we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.